tonight's program is being recorded. We invite you all to share your screen, share your cameras. However, so that it's a truly community event experience, but we understand if for privacy reasons, you decide to stay off camera. The Charlotte Journalism Collaborative is dedicated to providing a platform and structured community journalism partnership that supports the future of Charlotte and its work, serves as trusted source of information and news, and addresses the problems that are the most important to our city's residents. As a partnership of 7 major media companies, as a partnership, everyone got that pop-up that it's recording, so I did as well. As a partnership of 7 major media companies and other local institutions producing I Can't Afford to Live Here, a collaborative reporting project focused on solutions to the affordable housing crisis in Charlotte, we are supported by the Local Media Project, an initiative launched by the Solutions Journalism Network with support for the Knight Foundation, from the Knight Foundation to strengthen and reinvigorate local media ecosystems. Community engagement has been an important component of the collaborative's work since it launched. Building power through collaboration, the CJC is focused on knowing people through one-on-one and small group conversations, forums, informal gatherings, workshops, newsroom visits, pop-up sites, and dream salons. If you believe, as we do, that this work is important and you believe in a thriving local news community, I invite you to contact me to find out how you can support the sustainability of the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative. I'd like to first start by introducing Rachel Kuby, who's here from the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. She's going to be helping out tonight, and David Griffith, our data and impact editor at the CJC, who's on the call as well. Other members of our collaborative are on the call, some of our media partners, and I especially want to thank the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library staff, including Seth Urban, who I see, and Alicia for their technical support tonight. Finally, we are happy to be joined by 4 representatives of amazing organizations working directly with our community impacted by the current affordable housing crisis and increased evictions as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll let each panelist introduce themselves, but some quick information about each organization. Freedom Fighting Missionaries provides services and resources to the formerly incarcerated and criminal justice involved that lead to self-sufficiency. The organization connects people with services and resources specific to them, including helping people who struggled with housing due to their criminal background, and they have partnered with Home Again Foundation to bring affordable housing solutions to vulnerable populations experiencing homelessness. DreamKey Partners, formerly the Charlotte Mecklenburg Housing Partnership, is on a mission to make sure everyone lives in a safe, affordable home in a vibrant community that supports independence, opportunity, and advancement. Programs and services include an array of revitalization, education, housing, and economic development initiatives. Since forming in 1989, they have revitalized 9 neighborhoods in Charlotte, creating more than 2,600 units of affordable housing for families, created over 3,800 home owners, and counseled more than 23,700 families. Legal Aid of North Carolina is a statewide nonprofit law firm that provides legal services in civil matters to low-income people in order to ensure equal access to justice and to remove legal barriers to economic opportunity. Throughout the moratorium and since, Legal Aid has helped to keep tenants in their homes and protect them throughout the court process. They have also received funding which boosts their ability to help tenants apply for rent assistance and directly educate tenants and landlords on how the program works. Finally, Queen City Community Law Firm is committed to providing legal services to Charlotte's underserved populations. They focus on keeping people in their homes, helping renters and tenants, consumer and employment protections, community development, and housing and employment discrimination cases. The firm has also partnered with the Latin American Coalition to launch the East Side West Side Community and Legal Empowerment Project, aimed at providing legal services in the areas of eviction and foreclosure prevention and labor and employment. So if we can start by having each of you introduce yourselves and tell a bit about how you interact with people facing eviction in our community. Erin, do you want to get started?
Sure, I'm happy to start, and thank you for that introduction. My name is Erin Barbee. I'm the Senior Vice President of Programs and Fund Development at DreamKey Partners. And an important task that we took on in 2020 was the RAMP program, standing for Rent and Mortgage Payment Program. We help people who are facing eviction. We help people who are at risk of losing their home, who had a COVID-related impact, to receive funds and to be able to stay in their homes. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. We'll just go in the same route we did earlier. So Kenny.
And I am Kenny Robinson, the founder and executive director of Freedom Fighting Missionaries, which we serve the formerly incarcerated criminal justice individuals. Since 2020 and the start of the pandemic, already a problem that existed within our community as it pertains to housing was just exposed by the pandemic. So now everybody can clearly see that this population that I serve have been left behind and continues to be left behind, again, exposed by the pandemic. I am pleased to be here and give a voice to those of us who haven't typically had this type of voice, in hopes that we don't duplicate this in the future, in hopes that we can find a way to provide housing for everybody in Charlotte.
Great, thank you. Ismaail?
Hi, again, my name is Ismaail Qaiyim, and I am a private attorney, and my firm is the Queen City Community Law Firm. That's sort of half of my work, and then the other half of my work is as a community organizer in reference to housing with the Housing Justice Coalition. Tonight, I'll be focusing on the legal side in terms of the eviction process and really how it's affected the community here, how it affects vulnerable populations, and sort of the direct services work and its broad implications for everything else going on locally and nationally. So again, really happy to be here, and thank you to the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative.
Thank you. And last but not least, Hannah.
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, I am Hannah Guerrier. I am a supervising attorney with our housing unit at Legal Aid of North Carolina. We represent tenants who are facing evictions. And so we are in the courthouse day in, day out, advocating for tenants, trying to keep them in their housings and trying to keep stability in our community with that.
Great, thank you. And to get us started, we're gonna kind of throw this out to everybody, but looking back and looking forward, and I know it's a very broad question, but what is the state of evictions in Mecklenburg County right now? Who wants to take that first?
I will be happy to jump in. You're right, Chris, that is an extremely broad question with a lot of tentacles to it, but I can't even fathom the state of evictions in Mecklenburg County or speculate that we at the RAMP CLT program could have a full grasp of it. But what we know from our data is that month over month, we have seen a diversification and or have a court date. So more specifically, prior to October of 2021, less than 10% of submitted applications were facing eviction. Now, as of December, 39% of applications submitted are facing eviction. That is a significant increase. And we know that has a great deal to do with the moratorium being lifted, but it's still cause for us and cause for concern because more and more people are in highly stressful situations who are feeling very vulnerable and quite possibly about to lose their home. So for us, we think that the state of Mecklenburg County's eviction issue is dire.
I would echo what Erin is saying. It is dire in Mecklenburg County. We, prior to the pandemic, were facing about just under 30,000 eviction cases every year. We don't have all of the stats now that we have come off of the moratorium. Obviously, that will impact numbers because for the greater part of 2021, landlords weren't able to move forward with evictions related to non-payment and COVID-related non-payment. Now they are, and they are going at it with full force. We have 4 courtrooms open daily during the week, and each courtroom has 4 different dockets, and each docket can have up to 30 cases. And this is limited only in the sense of they're limiting the dockets because of not quarantining, social distancing. But because they're limiting the individual dockets, they've added a courtroom and they've added extra times. So it is a lot. And we are seeing everything move forward very quickly.
The evictions that I have seen that's already taken place since the lifting of the moratorium, again, goes right back to poverty. The individuals who are experiencing eviction, they did receive their eviction if they were able to. Right? They did not go to court because they could not get to court. They had to make a decision about going to court. Either I'm going to leave these children here by themselves, I'm going to not go to work and I just got this job. Or court is a very fearful place for me to go to for many different reasons. A lot of individuals are becoming new to homelessness and eviction, having never had to go to court before, right? There's a cost just to park there. Cost you $7. $7 may sound like a little to somebody who has money, but it's a lot when you're thinking about having to go there, having to be there all day. What do you do when you get there? So these are the individuals who've already been evicted, right? That because of digital divides, because of just poverty, right? And a lot of times for just being Black here in Charlotte, those individuals are currently removed from their house, already have been evicted, didn't even get an opportunity to put in a ramp application, and now are reaching out to organizations like mine from a hotel room or from a street with children. So yes, the evictions are live and happening every day. Sheriff Gary McFadden will tell you he has ordered his deputies to go out and execute evictions, and they are. And unfortunately, those who are being evicted are single Black mothers that's always been in poverty. And that is why I'm here in hopes that we can change that and get out there side by side with some of these individuals before they're on the street calling us.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to reiterate and what Kenny said. I mean, all of that is 100% absolutely the truth, both looking at it structurally and also just from a lot of my own experiences. What I'll say is that another thing I think that's really driving evictions forward in Charlotte really is, the housing crisis, right? And the so-called housing market. When we look at it, there is a glut of, money and capital and investment pouring into Charlotte, for building, for development. There is a push for people to, flip homes, sell homes. You will have a lot of tenants in Charlotte because of how Charlotte is laid out that live in single family homes, right? And so somebody might just decide if the home is owned by an investor, or even maybe, someone who lived there before, maybe their parent, passed the home on, they decide they want to sell it, right? And so at that particular point, a person who's maybe lived in a house for 10, 15 years with a large degree of stability is now in danger of being evicted, right? And then also in a lot of these cases, there may be issues of neglect, repairs, other things that are really, a source of stress financially, and in some cases danger to people. And with the way the market is now, even homes like that are a hot commodity. So a lot of it is it's all the structural things, and it's the added pressure of this particular point in time where the housing market is booming, and money is pouring into the city from all corners.
Thank you, Ismaail. And Hannah, you mentioned the number of dockets right now in the courthouse and the extra times for cases. And Kenny, you mentioned some of these really serious reasons why people are not making it to court. And we've already seen some comments from people in the chat about not having access to complete ramp Charlotte applications, et cetera. Just yesterday, the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative, and it hit a few of our publications today, published a story on why people are not showing up for court resulting in, which results in immediate eviction judgments. What resources are out there for people facing eviction, and you know, what can we do to help people stay in their homes? What can we do better, I guess, as a community is my question.
I'll jump in. Again, legal aid represents tenants who are facing eviction, and tenants have legal rights. There are defenses to evictions. And a lot of times it's about contacting a legal advocate to learn what those are and what options any given person has in their situation. There are a lot of requirements of landlords who are going through evictions, and those are protections for tenants. Landlords have to give demand for possession before going through the eviction process and different things like this. Landlords are supposed to be making repairs, and if they don't, they could, tenants could be entitled to monies back for rent they've paid, different things like that. And we recognize, like Kenny said, a lot of people are going through evictions for the first time right now and don't know the process. Heck, I didn't know landlord-tenant law until I became a landlord-tenant lawyer. It's not super intriguing bedtime reading, North Carolina general statutes, but there's a lot of power there. And so I would say to anybody who's facing an eviction, reach out and seek legal counsel to get advice on your individual case, because tenants have rights. And legal aid provides free legal counsel to those who meet our income eligibility and conflicts checks requirements. And I'll put a plug, our number is 704-594-8662. So call us. That's why we're here. We want to be used as a resource.
I'm happy to jump in next. I'm really thankful for what Hannah said. What we recognize is that helping families to stay in their home is absolutely a community effort, right? RAMP is just one tool to help families, but often the issues are just deeper than just needing funding, right? If they need legal assistance, they need someone to advocate on their behalf, they need someone to help. We see a lot of people that come to us and the issue could be resolved through mediation, right? They just need to have a conversation where someone who is neutral in the middle can talk with the landlord and can talk with the tenant and come to some agreement terms. We found that most of the landlords that we work with don't want to evict, but they do have rules and regulations that Hannah just said that they have to follow. And so we want to be able to help facilitate some of those partnerships. But the RAMP CLT program specifically can assist people with up to 12 months of arrears and up to 3 months forward. The Treasury provides us with guidelines. I want to remind everyone that this is a government program. And so we have to follow those guidelines. And at times that's a little difficult because we want to help everyone. But the maximum assistance amount we can provide someone is 15 months. And it's important to know that we have to prioritize the priority. And when you think about that, that means everyone who's at risk of losing their home is a priority. But then there are those that are truly in dire need, who are facing eviction, really about to get locked out immediately. And those are the people that we have to help first, according to Treasury, because they're the most vulnerable. But I like what Hannah said again about the urgency of it. So at the RAMP CLT program, we've had to shift and grow this program over the last year, and we've had to respond. And part of that is working in partnership with organizations like Legal Aid, working with organizations like Crisis Assistance Ministry to make sure that we're all on the same page. A lot of people may not know it, but we do have RAMP CLT processors at the courthouse. We did that so that we could make quick decisions for people who have not interacted with our program before, and they could help the overall judgment. And we're working with everyone, meaning the magistrate, with dispute settlement, with Legal Aid, in partnership to make these decisions happen quickly. Additionally, I saw that someone mentioned in the chat that that some people have difficulty with completing the application, and the application is difficult. But again, we're a government program, so we have to ask certain questions, but we have shifted again to provide people to be in at the CRC in partnership with Mecklenburg County at the Community Resource Center off of Freedom. It's a pilot. It's our first time providing in-person over a period of time and not just an event. We're hoping that this works out well for people to address those different needs. So we're always listening. I appreciate the comments and this opportunity to speak, because the feedback that we get today helps us to shape the program going forward. And I do want to let people know we have money. I know that sometimes there's a little bit of a rumor that their money is gone, but we have exhausted over $40 million into the community, helped over 10,000 families. We have another $43 million available that we're going to continue to distribute, and we exhaust about $600,000 a day. That's how fast and how urgent the need is.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I look at this, I tend to look at the eviction crisis as part of like a broader crisis within American society, right? And it really, when it really comes down to it, you know, it's really about kind of who has power and decision making and who doesn't. There was a comment in the chat that said, you know, housing being a right. And so from where I stand, both in terms of my work as an organizer and as an attorney, I believe that housing should be a human right. Housing is a human right. Everybody should have access to it, regardless of their ability to pay for it, because that's what's necessary to have an actual kind of, you know, functioning society whereby people are not, you know, homeless and you know, there's, you know, kind of slum-like conditions and you know, basically feudal serfdom, right? I mean, that's in a lot of ways, that's a lot of people could argue that's what we're going back to. So with that being said, I would say that from what I've seen as an attorney and an organizer, it's really two things, and they may not be the most intuitive things, or they are intuitive for, you know, people on the ground, but it's a lot of it is education, right? I mean, like Hannah mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of people don't know they have rights. A lot of people don't know that, you know what I mean, that like, you know, that they might, it's not even so much having a counterclaim, but just knowing like, you know, if somebody might get a notice from a landlord telling them to move out, and they don't know that the landlord, that you know, like the landlord hasn't actually filed anything in court, right? And like from there, you know, they may have options that they're not aware of, right? So I think part of that starts with educating yourself and knowing your rights as a tenant and just as a citizen. And so there are a lot of groups that are around Charlotte that do that, right? Like another group I'm with, the Charlotte Housing Justice Coalition, we do that. There is the Tenant Organizing Resource Center with Action NC. You know, they do tenant like, you know, trainings and all of that. There is another group, United Tenants of Charlotte, right? They do housing organizing and education. Legal Aid does it. And I'm always happy to, you know, I don't charge for consultation. So I'm always happy to try to provide advice to people and really talk to people and let people at least know what their options are. But it really starts, I think, with education. And I think from, you know, education is you know, people kind of coalescing together, thinking about and then moving toward creating a different system that doesn't, you know, result in human beings basically being harmed, you know, for the profit of other human beings.
Real quickly, I would have to touch on the things that slip through, like source of income discrimination. Erin can tell you, there's landlords who simply, they're just not taking the money. We don't want the money. They're so happy that this happened, right? Because they were in leases where the rent might have been $1,075, right? By law, you can't jump that up $600-700 each year. You just can't do it, right? Some of these properties have become hot commodities now, right? They want them out of there, right? Because they actually can get $1,600 a month now. If I can get them out of here, I can get $1,600 a month for this apartment versus the $975 that I'm getting. And this person is behind on their rent. So guess what? We know the eviction process is tough. They don't want to be on the news, the person kicking the person out. So guess what? I'm just not going to renew that lease, right? I'll let you stay here another 3 months going through this because I'm going to get that money back when I raise that rent the next time around for the next person who comes in there. So there's landlords, a lot of them are participating. A great percentage of them are participating in every program available, including ours. But a small percentage of them are just not taking the money. And we don't have time for small percentages during a pandemic. This is not normal circumstances, right? This is a pandemic. That's why the money's there at RAM. That's why the money's come in other places from the federal government to assist the individuals because of the pandemic. And unfortunately, you have landlords that are taking advantage of that in hopes of future profits. Again, the pandemic exposed source of income and discrimination so much so that the city council and government officials are now talking about it because it is an issue. And unfortunately, that is another reason why we're on this call, so we can address some of those things and be able to guide those individuals who are going to get their leases ended to better housing, more suitable housing, and not going through the shelter system because somebody wants to make a future profit.
Thank you, Kenny. And Ismaail, I want to come back to the right to counsel thing. I know we talked about that a bit earlier and we've reported on it. But Kenny, while I've got you too, what are some ways that I know your organization and Erin mentioned the Center on Freedom, what are some ways that you're working to like provide opportunities for people to get support or help outside of the courthouse? So, you know, these community outreach events or efforts that you're doing or other organizations that are doing to help people avoid eviction, not necessarily at the courthouse.
Well, we've held two events specifically to assist individuals with ramp applications, to provide the laptops donated by the library and the volunteers to come and help those individuals through the application, because the audience that we have, they trust us, right? You know, those that we serve and those that follow us on social media, they trust us in a way that they may not trust going to ramp because it's just government sounding, right? And there's other things that play a lot of times, right, with this housing, because it may be a 2-bedroom and the mother and the child, but her brother got out of prison. Her daddy got out of prison, right? Her cousin has to have somewhere to go. So when she gets evicted, it's 4 or 5 of them that get evicted that may come in and out of that place as they're trying to get on their feet. So those are the individuals that we speak to, and those are the individuals who responded because the shame and stuff is not there, right? They can talk to me directly about, Kenny, I really don't even know how to use my phone too good, more or less a laptop. And what is upload and download, and they want me to scan this and scan that. You got individuals running all over town to Targets and office, and they're trying to get stuff printed out, trying to get things scanned, and a lot of them have given up. And we were speaking to those individuals that they can come and sit with us, or we'll send somebody out there directly to them. And we were able to help a lot of individuals get through the application and then help to follow up with those applications for those individuals as they were getting closer to the time of eviction. And it did work. Even if it was only 2 people, that's 2 people, right? That's 2 families. That's probably 5 kids, right? That get to stay in their same school system. I mean, the effects of this, it goes far. Can you imagine being in the same school system for 5 years as an 11-year-old, right? Now you got to get uprooted and go on another side of town. Can you imagine being from the west side of Charlotte all your life? Now you got to go down to the south side. That's a different hood down there, right? That's different people down there, right? Nobody wants to do that. So we spoke to those individuals, and a lot of them came out. And again, this was supported by DreamKey and Ramp. So we wasn't doing it behind their back. They knew that we were assisting individuals.
I wasn't sure. Did you want me to take the right to counsel question?
Sure. You know, we were chatting earlier. So the collaborative is also, several of the CJC partners have reported on right to counsel laws in other cities around the country and how they are helping tenants at risk. Ismaail, I know you've witnessed such a program in New York City. What does it look like in other cities, and how could that impact Charlotte?
Right, well, a couple things. So I went to law school in New York, but I'm actually originally from Clanton Park. That's where I live. I'm from the West Side. And I came back to Charlotte after graduating from law school. So when I was in law school, I graduated in 2019, I actually witnessed like New York City started right to counsel. And right to counsel basically is the same way for a criminal trial, you get a public defender. If you were facing an eviction, you would get an attorney to represent you in small claims court here in North Carolina, where evictions are filed and occur. So basically, that program started in 2017, and I went to CUNY, City University of New York School of Law, which is a public interest oriented law school. So like I had professors that were like, and other, students, other, colleagues, classmates that had been involved in a lot of the community organizing that got Right to Counsel to pass. So I want to say Right to Counsel was a result of people on the ground coming together, coalescing and organizing, in addition, right, to a lot of people working at different levels, like within the government and otherwise, to really make it happen. So it's also a lesson that really we need that kind of groundswell, that kind of push from the bottom here in Charlotte to really change some things so that we can actually, see a difference. But long story short, basically, in New York, when Right to Counsel was rolled out, it was rolled out in specific zip codes. It wasn't rolled out throughout the entire city. And it was done gradually, like year by year. Started in 2017, and I think it was rolled out for all the 5 boroughs in 2020. And so basically, when you look at it, what you see is that if we were to try to apply that here in Charlotte, you see that like probably the bulk of evictions are happening in maybe like 3 zip codes. Maybe you can expand it out to maybe like 2 or 3 other zip codes, but like 28205, like 28216, and like, 1 or 2 other zip codes right here in the city. And so like, if we were, to implement it, you could target the zip codes that have like the highest numbers of evictions. And you could work with groups like Legal Aid, Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy, other private attorneys, other nonprofits and community groups, right? To really kind of ensure that like, and obviously you'd have to work with the magistrate's office and, all of that, but to ensure that basically like when someone has an eviction filed against them, there's a process to verify, income, whatever. And basically like they would have an attorney the same way you'd have an attorney in a criminal trial. That's kind of the idea. And there are a lot of, groups that I work with and other groups that really, we've all said that, in Charlotte, we have this funding coming from the Biden administration, the American Rescue Act funding. It's like $250 million that's being earmarked. And I mean, I think a lot of that funding and other sources of funding that are coming to the city, another $250 million some of that funding could be used to make Right to Counsel a reality. The difficulty in it is it's politics, right? I mean, landlords are very well organized. They have the apartment association, they have lobbying groups that really push whenever there is a desire to talk about, say, the source of income discrimination and really do something about it. Their lobbying groups come and really kind of either water it down, block it, and oppose it, right? I mean, I can tell you as an attorney and as an organizer, this is about, power versus power. And like, if we want to change it, it's got to be the power of people on the ground, because these landlords and, developers and other people are very well organized and they have a lot of lobbying power, right? And so, I know we get into the big structural conversation, but at the end of the day, it's like Kenny said, it's like, 5 people being evicted, 1 person being evicted is really 5 people being evicted, and it's Black women, and it's undocumented people also. That are heavily being targeted as well. I can, from my relationship with the Latin American Coalition, I can speak to that too. But that's kind of like an overview of what Right to Counsel could look like, what it could do. I think in New York, around 95% of landlords were represented, and maybe 1% of tenants are represented. And I think after Right to Counsel was rolled out, it's about 40% of tenants are represented. In certain zip codes, evictions dropped to maybe 20% of what they were, just by virtue of the fact that tenants had that access to representation. And like I said, I mean, in Charlotte, really, you target 5, 6 zip codes, where these things are happening, you can really, make a difference, right? And like I said, the system only responds to really people organizing and coming together. So yeah, I mean, that's my whole spiel on right to counsel.
And I'll jump in. While I can't give an opinion on the Right to Counsel policy overarchingly, I can say there is such value in having an attorney and advocate by the tenant side in the courtroom. The courtroom can be such an intimidating and formal and honestly just a scary place for tenants to be. Not only is it oftentimes a new place for them to be, but it's their home at risk. It's the very place of their safety. And having an attorney by their side to help advise them of their rights, defend them in court, help negotiate resolutions with landlords that support the tenant and then the community at large is truly invaluable. And like Ismaail said, in North Carolina right now, I would say about 95% of landlords are represented, whereas maybe 1% in Mecklenburg County are represented. And legal aid represents as many as come to us and as many as we can, but that's still a small percentage because some people don't come to court or some people don't contact us because they don't know their rights and they don't know the resources that are out there. And so having counsel is very important.
And there's only one fear that we would have here in North Carolina and Charlotte to bring and write to counsel. And that fear is that it would simply just help Black people, because that's what we're talking about here, right? That's what we're talking about here is poor Black people in Mecklenburg County are the ones that's facing evictions the most. So to have a lawyer to represent them when you get an eviction, right, would be a great thing, right? And would allow that person to stay in their home and would have no need to contact me nor Erin or anybody else, right? Because you'd get the court and you'd have a lawyer assigned to you. There'd be a process with the landlords to try to locate that person who 9 times out of 10 are still in the home until the sheriff comes there, right? There'd have to be an effort to help the poor people who serve the people of Mecklenburg County, right? When you go there to your Bojangles, just look in there. When you go in the drive-through, just look in there and wonder if that lady right there knows how to contact legal aid, knows how to fill out these applications, knows all of their rights, all of the many rights under the Constitution that they have. Just look at those kind of individuals when you go out to service places, right? Wonder about that dishwasher back there that you want that glass so clean from. Do you think that he knows these things? And all of us were faced with this. All of us were sitting at home for 3 months when the lockdown. Do you think that those individuals knew these things? So of course, right to counsel is definitely needed in Mecklenburg County. We should shoot for it in hopes that the rest of the state will follow behind it as they do Mecklenburg County. So I would love to advocate on that very issue of right to counsel to be brought here.
I did want to also add, there was, for the New York Right to Counsel, part of the bill that was passed also provided support and funding for community-based groups, right, that were basically like supporting this effort. So very much to that point, the people who are actually going to be the points of contact on the ground, right, for people who really need it, there was like money and other things and resources that were set aside to support right to counsel, because in a lot of ways, people really fought for it from the ground up, right? So I did want to reiterate that point based on kind of what Kenny said also.
Thank you. I know we've touched on a lot of this and already, but I want to make sure there's some space in here to add anything that you guys have. Like, what are we not seeing? Like, what's not making it into the news? What's happening on the ground within the communities? What do people need to understand that we've not touched on already, or that's not being heard loud enough?
I can start there. What we're seeing through the RAMP program is that the issue isn't getting better, right? What we see is that people might have gotten jobs back, they might have gotten some stability right now, but they're making up for a whole year's worth of not having access, not having funding, not having money, not having childcare, not having healthcare, things that they needed addressed. And it's catching up to people. And we're seeing this impact, and we're not talking about it as much anymore. It's not in the forefront of everyone's mind because many people are moving on. And I would implore our communities to continue to focus on the most vulnerable until everybody is back to a more stable situation. And by focusing on evictions, I think we're doing our small part, but it's so much bigger than that. I think out of this conversation, you all have heard that the issues are deep. They were deep before COVID, but now they are just so deep, and we need to work together in order to make a change. And I think that our RAMP program is just a piece of that. I think that we need to talk about, as a community, how are we going to sustain change over time, not just Band-Aid. And that's what keeps me up at night, right? We can help people with their arrears. We can help people get, a few months of stability, But what happens beyond that when all these other issues continue to come to a head? So that's what I think that we need to keep at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's a couple things. I think there is an acknowledgement of kind of the points that Erin raised, and communities are organizing and coming together. You know, there's another group, the Community Benefits Coalition, which is heavily made up of neighborhoods and people who live in, you know, West Charlotte, some in East Charlotte, that are really coming together and you know, pressuring the city on the policy apparatus that really sort of entrenches poverty, right, and causes this to be a thing. If we want, you know, to have favorable policies around source of income discrimination or right to counsel, or even just more funding available, right, for eviction defense, whatever it is, you know, like there has to be the pressure there to really kind of make it a priority, to really keep it in the news, to keep it active. And like that pressure, again, can only come from, you know, the grassroots, people organizing on the ground. And like with, you know, with the clear kind of understanding of like, you know, what this is about. I mean, again, this is about those who have power versus those who don't have power, right? Like that kind of, that's the mentality that I bring, you know, to my practice. And the way that I approach it is I want to aggressively bring counterclaims and countersue landlords. And especially because like someone put in the chat, it's the same firms that are representing landlords. And like I was in court today, and literally if you go to housing court, it's not housing court here, but if you go to small claims court, you'll just see an attorney that's from the same firm entering judgment after judgment after judgment, evicting people. And it, like they do it and like they're not challenged. And when I go to court, when I was in court today, you know, they you know, I filed counterclaims and they were begging the judge, you know, to push it out because they have to find somebody, right, to, you know, to argue, you know, against you know, what I'm, you know, the causes of action that I brought. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything, but it's just when somebody fights back, the dynamic is different. And we all have to kind of fight together in our own way and really try to build something that can really bring about something that's different. So, I mean, I try to bring that, again, that mentality to my practice. And I'm aggressively going after these landlords, big and small. It doesn't matter to me because, again, housing is a human right. And that's what's right. And, you know, this is really important to me. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of organizing going on out here. Please feel free to reach out. And yeah, I'm, again, happy to be here and hopefully take some questions as well.
Great. And with that, I did want to open it up. I know there's been a couple questions in the chat, and I think we've gotten most of them, but I wanted to check in. David, have we missed anything in the chat? Or if people want to post questions in the chat, we'll start taking those now. Ismaail, the landlords make all types of mistakes on their paperwork. Magistrate says she can't help them fix their paperwork, then she helps them. I feel like you know where this is coming from, but I think, you know, there's this bigger question that, I mean, it kind of goes back to that right to counsel and that representation that the tenant has too. But do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, and I'll let Hannah, if you want, you know, take a take one of this too. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that happen. Like I had a case where that actually happened. It was a pro se landlord. It was a landlord that wasn't represented and made a mistake, and the magistrate let them, you know, fix their paperwork or whatever else. I think it really just comes down in that situation. It comes down to just the level of advocacy. I mean, I think you can try to push back on it. But oftentimes, you know, if you have you have what you have. I mean, speaking as an attorney, you know, do your research, bring whatever defenses, counterclaims, and, you know, you just argue it out. So in that particular case, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter because, you know, they like, you know, I was able to get the eviction dismissed against my client at that time. But it is a problem. And, you know, like I say, you just kind of have to try to argue your case in that situation. And I think maybe also, maybe with, I think, pushing for like a change in culture in the way we do things in Charlotte also, I think it's something from a broader standpoint that might also help with a lot of these things, but that's a little bit more abstract, I guess, at this point.
And then oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I completely agree with Ismaail. Landlords do make lots of mistakes in paperwork. And a lot of it does come down to, well, how hard is the tenant in court? Is the tenant going to push back? Does the tenant have an advocate who knows what the mistakes are and can push back about that? And that's contact attorneys. Tenants, you have rights. Contact us. We can help guide you through so many different of these processes. Help explain them, help guide people. So.
Thank you. There was a comment a little bit earlier on from Jennifer, who said there's no housing programs for Black trans people in Charlotte, and how she wishes they would, or they wish they would fund some housing through RAIN. It kind of brings up the other question of like, how are you working with non-traditional community organizations that people might not associate with housing? I know RAIN does offer some housing through the Haven House and some programs for some of their clients, but are you working with any organizations that are like those grassroots organizations embedded in the community to connect people with resources who may be facing eviction?
So I can speak from the rent perspective. So when we've been contacted or made aware that a certain population has difficulty with the application or accessing the funds, we have set up specific opportunities to work with that population, whether that be an on-site event or an online event based off of what that group says. So really it's just reaching out to us and making us aware. We're looking for partnership in these areas, and we're very willing to make sure that we're addressing that. So I would love to partner with RAIN. I haven't yet, and I think we would be able to help address some of the challenges that people might be having with our application. So I hope that, please encourage, Jennifer, please encourage someone to reach out to me.
Thank you. And for those, Rachel pointed out, for those of you who do not know what RAIN is, it is a local HIV service organization that serves the community through HIV services and prevention programs, education, etc. I posted a link to their website as well.
And Rayo is another, they're new here. They came just before 2000, just before the pandemic. So they started in late 2018, 2019, Rayo. They have similar services to RAIN, specifically for the Black trans community, HIV testing. I met with them, great organization. They're small, but they're out here helping others. To Ismaail's point on grassroots organizations and advocating from the ground up, we're doing it just out of passion. They give us nothing, zero do they give us for this, right? These partnerships, they come with nothing. They don't come with no funding, right? We're doing this because we care about the community and the populations that we serve, right? The bigger organizations that get all the money, Salvation Army and them, all of them, they get all of the money. They do not funnel it down to the grassroots organizations. The city government and the county government, they do not make an effort for the grassroots organizations to receive the funding that we need to advocate and to be the intermediary between legal aid, between RAMP and others, right? And again, it has just been exposed by the pandemic, and it is continuing to get $40,000 for my housing efforts total, and that came $20,000 from Wells Fargo and $20,000 from the United Way. That's it. However, the Charlotte community has donated $270,000 to our efforts this year alone for housing. So it's not that the community doesn't see what's going on here. They do, and they've been sending in their stimulus money, right? And their little checks that they get paid $20 and $30 at a time so we can do the work that we do, while the government has contributed $1,000. And all of the other big corporations that look down from 32nd floor they can see the homeless. You can see them there on 9th Street from your building. They're looking down at them and giving us nothing. So we continuously ask, where is the money? When is it going to get to the grassroots organization so we can sustain ourselves? Because as for me, and this is the truth, I have a ramp application in myself for my own household. It's pending, mine, right? I've been doing this work out of passion. I don't get paid for this work. And unfortunately, for those that we serve, I'm going to have to go back to work in January. I just have to, because I have to survive. I have children and grandchildren, and I have to go back to work and do a regular job because the funding is not there to pay me a salary to do this work, and you just can't do it for free. I don't raise money from the community to pay my bills. I raise money from the community to assist those that we assist, and that's just the cold, hard truth.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to, yeah, I mean, that's a major problem. It's just that in terms of any organization that is serving a particular population, I mean, even with like, the Latin American Coalition is serving, I mean, Spanish speaking community, but also many people that are undocumented. It's like, in terms of, I mean, LAC gets more support than some of the other organizations, but, it's just like, I mean, there has to be, I think, again, a different mentality, a shift in the way that we think about this issue, and that shift really, again, is only going to come from the bottom up. But and I think a part of that shift is that the funding, the support needs to go to those people who are on the ground, who are closest to the problem. And I think in Charlotte, I know there's just there's an aversion to doing that for many different reasons. In the bodies and the channels of power, and I mean that aversion either needs to change, and we really have to pressure and push for it to change.
Thank you. 2 more questions from the chat. And Shauna, I'm gonna try to catch your story in just a second, make sure there's not a question there, but I'm sure that the CJC reporters would love to be in contact with you and hear more of your story as well. So if you're willing to share your contact information, if you want to private message me there, I'll share that on. We'd love to hear more of your story. But two quick questions. One from Dr. Rodriguez, I believe. Why do apartments force proof of net worth 3 to 5 times higher than the total cost of rent in order to qualify for their leases? I'm not sure if anybody can answer that question of why they do, but does anyone want to take that? Okay. We'll move on to the other one. When landlords don't take funding from rent, are tenants connected to other services in the community? And I think that's kind of a broader question of like, if landlords don't take funding, what happens in that tenant case?
Yeah, so the Treasury has provided us with guidelines for that because it's happening across the country. And we're seeing more and more cases where landlords are just refusing. And they're refusing because they don't want to sign a landlord-tenant agreement in many cases where it provides protections for that tenant through the duration that they receive the funds. So our process is to first, once we're made aware that the landlord is refusing to participate in the program, we refer them to the dispute settlement team. And oftentimes hearing from another person, they can come on board with the program and understand the importance of the landlord-tenant agreement. If that doesn't happen, then Treasury has allowed for us to pay the tenant directly. And what that means is that we will make the check out to the property, but the tenant would be responsible for picking it up and making that payment. Now, the reason why that is a last resort, not one that we're holding off on at all, but our goal is to work with everyone possible to put protections in place for that tenant. We want to make sure that they don't give the landlord a check and then the next day they're still evicted, right? So there are options. Again, Treasury has provided us with great guidance for how we can address this. If there's an individual issue, then I urge this person to talk with legal aid first, because the RAMP program can't provide legal advice, but we will work in partnership with legal aid to help address the issue.
And Chris, when all of those remedies are exhausted and you still have nowhere to go, right? You've tried that legal aid, you've tried everything else, and you still have nowhere to go. And the landlord simply is not going to take a check from a third party, right? They're just not going to do it. Or the hotel, right? Because as Erin knows, we're saying like properties and landlords, but a great percentage of this is hotels, right? Erin can tell you they spend out a lot of money directly to hotels, right? They've made adjustments since the launch of the programs to make it easier to get money directly to hotels. And a lot of them are just refusing it. When that happens, and that the individual gets out into the community and makes contact with a grassroots organization like ours, then we don't play around, right? That's why we deal mostly with mutual aid. We don't have time for that. I'll go there with the money order, right? With the person, right? Get the person right over there to the hotel, to the property owner, right? The landlord, so they can give them the check or the money order directly from them to the landlord. That is, that's not third party. What they're saying is we ain't going to take a third party payment, right? Well, it's no longer third party if the individual pays directly to them. And we get the funds directly to the individual by taking it to them, getting in my car, or Jennifer or the rest of our team getting in the car with the money and going there and paying it, and keeping that individual housed for another 30, 60 days. Sometimes that is all that individual needs, is another 30 or 60 days, right? What they need is to not have an eviction on their record. They're bad enough with a 550 credit score, making $13 an hour for their whole life, never made more than $13 an hour. So we definitely don't want that eviction to get on there and further harm them in the future, when one day this will be over with and that person will want to move or be forced to move. So again, having the resources in the community on a grassroots level to go there, we're only able to do it because the community cares, right? This community has shown since the pandemic that they do care about a myriad of different issues, racial justice involved. If they didn't, then they wouldn't have contributed the way that they have. So that is the way around it. You just have to get out there and get the money to the person and let them carry it directly to the landlord, or else they're gonna get evicted. Or when their lease is over with, they gotta go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think to the question before about the requirements, the 3 to 5, whatever income requirements, just whatever requirements landlords require. I mean, I think the answer is kind of in the answer that Erin and Kenny both gave, is that landlords just don't have to. I mean, they can act with impunity and create arbitrary requirements, or they can refuse money from a third party. And I mean, like I said, if you compare this to other states, the state could make landlords, could put stronger restrictions there to make it as to where, they might, you could put regulations in place to protect people. But at the end of the day, it's a power dynamic, and they know that if they can do it with impunity. Nobody's going to question them or challenge them, or make them pay or punish them for doing it. And that's the state of affairs that we're in. So I think, again, to create that counter pressure, both for individuals and collectively, so that there is accountability, for landlords, and we can, maybe try to get some of these things changed. But I mean, I think, I don't, I can't say that, what I mean, like I have a check and I'm going to, give it to the landlord. But, if I write a letter or I file a claim or do whatever it is, I mean, that the calculation changes completely, right? Suddenly a landlord that doesn't want to talk and isn't willing, and, they want to settle, or they want to, or it's just, it changes the dynamic when you have some leverage. And so I think building leverage for, our people collectively out here on the ground, and also doing what we can in our individual capacity to do that, I think is really what's going to make a difference. But I saw that, and I wanted to just speak to that question too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say if landlords aren't accepting the ramp assistance or other rental assistance that is out there, that's where our attorneys go back to the books and we look, what legal defenses can we bring? What counterclaims can we bring? How else can we keep this person in the home if we're not able to resolve this mutually? Then we're going to bat.
And again, Chris, I must note and I must say that these issues that we're talking about, this is Mecklenburg County, this is Guilford County, this is Durham and Wake County, this is Forsyth County. This is the counties where there's predominantly, with more Black people are there in those counties. Pick a rural county where the people are poor there, but they're white and poor. They're not having calls like this there, right? The whole program and other resources have already paid their back rent, right? They are not in no fear of being evicted. And most of the rural counties across North Carolina, check them out, I have, right? They're not doing this. They're not having these discussions, right? They're not in no fear of losing their places in those rural counties where the people are poor. So, I mean, once you say, okay, well, poor versus poor, well, what kind of poor, right? Because in those other counties, they're just simply not going through what we're going through in the counties that I'm speaking of, which is similar to the Crescent here in Charlotte. Just go around North Carolina, right? Just go up Charlotte, go around Winston-Salem, go over there to Durham and Wake in the Crescent, just like the Crescent that's here in Charlotte. Those is where these issues are predominantly at. And the other 80 some counties, they're just simply not having these kind of problems. The resources have already been dispersed and they're already rebounding from this.
Thank you, Kenny, for that. So we're gonna wrap up. I know, Erin, you and I chatted a little bit about, how this takes everybody to make any dent in our community. Do you want to touch on that a little bit, and then we'll wrap things up tonight?
Yeah, well, first I want to say this has been an excellent conversation. I think that some real truth was spoken tonight, and we've had an opportunity to address some of the community concerns. But I think Ismaail said it best when he was talking about a collective. This work cannot be done in silos. And I urge all community members that if you see an issue, know that we're in this together, right? To talk with RAMP, talk with legal aid. Let's all come together and figure it out. Because without each person really speaking the same language, trying to work together, noting that this is an unprecedented issue and that we have to really meet each other where we are, we're not going to make it very far. So I hope that we can continue to have a spirit of collectiveness, collective thinking, collectiveness, and that we can have collective impact as well. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that this is not the last of these conversations, Chris. I hope that we can continue to come together and just keep pushing forward until we move that needle.
Definitely. And with that, I thank all of you for being part of the panel tonight. Erin, Ismaail, Kenny, Hannah, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone in our community who joined us tonight. To keep up with what's going on at the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative, please visit our website at charlottejournalism.org or follow us at CLT Journalism on all your social media. And with that, have a great night. We'll be posting this video later for you to share and view again. But and we'll come back with another conversation soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.